A really easy thing that we should all know is be nice to people. And you'd be surprised, when you meet people who are professionally unpleasant. And I'm going to tell you the story of the chap on the left rather, who's based on a real person who spent the bulk of his career during the 80s and 90s being really, really abusive, emotionally abusive to all the people who were beneath him in the production hierarchy. And then something happened. The 2D animation industry basically collapsed and was replaced by CGI. And he was a traditional animator and he wasn't able to make the transition because he was too inflexible, whatever. So the amount of jobs that were still available, it wasn't zero, but it was beginning to shrink. All of the people that were formerly his little underlings here in blue, they got promoted and their careers went up. And now he can't get work. And it's like one of these morality tales that you would almost think is made up, but he literally cannot get work because all the people that he worked with remember him as being a basically terrible person. And it's too late for him now. He's basically ruined. So don't be this guy. And it's really simple. It's don't be a jerk. And now this is him slinking off. It's role reversal. So we work in a very volatile career where people who come in as interns 1 month can be running a studio a couple of years or a few years later. And indeed, I have a friend who's a lovely guy who, when I knew him back in the 80s, had, dreadlocks, and it was basically your classic counterculture type. And you would never have thought he would have amounted to anything. And now he runs his own studio. So the worst thing that you can do, especially if you're younger and you're starting out, is to make assumptions about who is going to succeed and who is going to fail. We should all know better by now, but this is just a little warning to be nice to people. So you don't have to be a suck up, but you can be pretty pleasant and not be either a suck up or a brute. So some career advice about the rough layout that you'll find the corporate hierarchy. So you have usually the boss or the owners at the top. You have middle management or management usually beneath them, the kind of executives, people who, if you want to call them bean counters, etc. And then you have various tiers of artists, senior artists, intermediate artists, and then various assistants or interns, people at the very bottom of this crude pyramid. Now, one mistake a person might make is to thinking that they should be super friendly to the boss or maybe the managers over and above everybody else. The danger with this is that more often than not, the people that will hire you 5 years down the line are down here, or here, or here. So the worst thing that you can do, as I've already said, is make that assumption. So the greatest advice you will ever have is not necessarily to be super friendly to everybody, but just get on with as many people as you can. It will vastly improve your chances, especially if jobs contract later on, if these people have fond memories of working with you. I have on occasion been rewarded by being on good terms with people from these tiers, but they're just fewer in number. There are far more people down here who will then get hired by other studios. Their bosses will say, do you know anybody good? Oh yeah, I know this guy, so-and-so, and maybe again, in one of these levels, that'll be you. Hire him or her. They're great. So that is really strong advice, and you don't want to be basically left out in the cold.